The Mysterious Photograph. Chapter 1. The Discovery. The rain pattered against the window of Sarah Lawson's cozy apartment as she rummaged through an old cardboard box in her attic. The box, filled with relics from her childhood, had been untouched for years. She had always meant to sort through it, to relive the precious memories captured within, but time slipped by like grains of sand through her fingers. As she sifted through vintage postcards and dusty toys, her fingers brushed against something cold and flat. It was a photograph, yellowed and frayed at the edges. Curious Sarah pulled it free, feeling a shiver of anticipation. The photograph depicted a group of 5 children, the sunlight dancing in their eyes, their laughter frozen in time. But as she studied the picture closely, a chill ran down her spine. One of the children, a girl with freckles and untamed curls, was an exact likeness of herself at that age. Turning it over, Sarah found something scrawled in faint pencil. The Summer of Secrets, 1995, but she had no recollection of such a summer or of the mysterious friends in the photograph. Who were they? Where did she take this picture? Determined to uncover the truth, Sarah embarked on a journey into her past, unaware of the strange and unexpected events that awaited her. Chapter 2. The Search. Sarah delved into local archives, poring over old newspapers and school yearbooks from the mid-90s. With every page she turned, her frustration mounted. The photograph, once a playful reflection of a long-lost summer, became an unsolved riddle that consumed her thoughts. She reached out to her parents, believing they might shed light on her mystery friends. Over cups of coffee in their quaint suburban kitchen, Sarah showed them the photograph. Her mother's face transformed from curiosity to confusion as she scratched her head, straining to remember. Honestly, sweetheart, I don't recognize any of those children. Perhaps it was a neighbor's kids, her mother suggested, but Sarah felt a persistent tugging at her memory. A whisper of familiarity mingled with an unsettling unease. Frustrated but resolved, Sarah decided to take a step further, tracking down anyone who might have lived in her neighborhood during that summer. After hours of phone calls and social media searches, she located a man named Jake who had lived just a few houses down. His name stirred an echoing familiarity in her mind. They arranged to meet at a local cafe, and as Jake walked in, she recognized him instantly. He was one of the boys in the photograph. Her heart raced. "Jake," she said, extending her hand. "I'm Sarah Lawson." Jake's eyes lit with recognition. "I remember you. It was a long time ago, but how could I forget the girl who always climbed the highest trees?" The conversation flowed as they reminisced, but it left Sarah with more questions. "Do you remember anything about that summer? The other kids?" Jake's smile faded a little. "I don't know. A lot of it feels like a dream now, but I do remember some strange things happening. Shadows in the woods, whispers at night. We used to play a game called The Secret." "The Secret?" Sarah echoed, intrigued. Jake leaned closer, his voice low. "We used to pretend we could communicate with something out there. It was all in good fun, but I sometimes wonder if we tapped into something we shouldn't have." Chapter 3. The Shadows of the Past. Haunted by Jake's words, Sarah found herself returning to her childhood neighborhood, armed with the photograph. The familiar sights around her felt different. They were now tinted with a sense of dread. The towering trees, once cheerful sentinels of her youth, seemed menacing. Every rustle in the bushes echoed like whispered secrets. She and Jake decided to revisit the woods where they had once played. As they ventured deeper into the thicket, Sarah felt an electric tension in the air. "This is where we played our game," Jake said, eyes scanning the surroundings. "There's something about this place." Double quotes. As they wandered, Sarah could almost hear the the distant laughter of children echoing through the foliage. But mirth soon turned into silence, and the atmosphere thickened. Suddenly, they stumbled upon a clearing illuminated by a slant of sunlight. To their shock, they found something half buried in the dirt. It was a small, ornate wooden box engraved with mysterious symbols. Her heart pounding, Sarah crouched to unearth the box. With trembling hands, she lifted the lid, revealing assorted trinkets, old toys, broken jewelry, and another photograph. This one was different. It showed the same group of children, but instead of joy, they wore expressions of fear. What does it mean? Sarah asked, studying the picture closely. Jake's brow furrowed, and he reached into the box for a small piece of paper that crumbled at his touch. It read, "Beware the shadows, they know your name." The gravity of their discovery weighed heavily upon them. As they left the woods, Sarah felt the sensation of being watched. The photograph had ushered them into a world where past and present intertwined, where the innocence of childhood was shadowed by things left unsaid. Chapter 4: The Ghosts of Lost Friends. With each passing day, Sarah's obsession grew. Since her return from the woods, she had become increasingly fixated on uncovering the truth. She and Jake began to track down the other children from the photograph. Rachel, Thomas, and Lily each had scattered to different parts of the city, but they all shared one common thread: fragmented memories of that fateful summer. Their journey brought them to Rachel, a local artist who painted dark, haunting landscapes. Over coffee in her studio, Sarah unveiled the photograph. Rachel's eyebrows shot up in recognition. "I never wanted to talk about that summer again. We thought we were just playing, but the shadows, they lingered even when we stopped." "What happened?" Jake asked, leaning in. Rachel hesitated, her hands trembling slightly. "There was a night when we were playing in the woods and we heard a voice calling our names. We thought it was just a game, but it felt real. Something shifted in the air. We ran home, and after that night, none of us were the same." Thomas, a mechanic with a knack for gadgets, had few memories but was more than willing to join the uncovering. Lily, now a librarian, was the cautious one, holding on to her fears. When all four of them reunited, there was a palpable tension in the air. Each carefully shared their memories, piecing together the puzzle of that summer. The more they spoke, the heavier the air became, the shadows of their past climbing the walls of their present. It became clear that something had transpired, a boundary crossed, perhaps awakened by their innocent game. "It's almost as if whatever was out there was drawn to us," Sarah mused. "But why?" Double quotes. As the gathering became more intense, so did the phenomenon surrounding them. They began to notice strange occurrences: objects moving on their own, shadows flickering just out of sight. Each time Sarah glanced at the photograph, she felt the girl in it staring back at her, begging for answers. Chapter 5: The Confrontation. As the days passed, Sarah felt an overwhelming urgency to confront whatever had been awakened. They huddled again, each bearing the weight of their memories. In the very clearing where they discovered the box, the atmosphere crackled with anxiety and dread. "Maybe it's time we face our fears," suggested Jake, voice steady despite the tension. "We need to acknowledge whatever it is that's out there. We can't let it control us anymore." Rallying their courage, they formed a circle, hands joined. Sarah closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "If there is something here we want to understand, we're not afraid of you." For a moment, nothing happened. Then the wind picked up, weaving through the trees like a ghostly whisper. An eerie silence engulfed them. Then, for the first time, they heard it. A soft voice beckoned, calling their names: Sarah, Jake, Rachel, Thomas, Lily. It sent a shiver down Sarah's spine, though It was not entirely unwelcoming. "Why did you call us?" Sarah demanded, her heart racing, even as she felt an inexplicable tug of connection. "What did you want?" Rachel added, her voice trembling. The shadows shifted, and from within them, a figure emerged, blurry and indistinct but undeniably present. "You sought secrets, and now the truth demands to be seen." With a gasp, Sarah realized the figure bore a resemblance to the freckled girl in the photograph. "Who are you?" The soft echoes of laughter turned to sorrow. "I was lost, forgotten along with the other children who played the game. You awakened me from eternal silence. I crave companionship, a semblance of remembrance." Heart racing, Sarah felt tears welling in her eyes. You wanted to be remembered." The figure nodded slowly, the shadows swirling around her. "But there are consequences. We told our secrets too recklessly. Now we are bound here, caught between worlds. To remember us is to carry our burdens." Chapter 6, Breaking the Cycle. The revelation rocked Sarah to her core, realizing that the photograph had summoned not just memories but a real longing from the other side complicated everything. She understood now all their games had a price. Together, they had accidentally intertwined their destinies with those lost children. "What can we do?" Jake asked, urgency in his tone. "To forgive," the figure stated, her voice echoing through the clearing. "To forgive yourselves, and to set us free." Inspired by the figure's ethereal plea, they each took turns voicing their fears, regrets, and long-buried emotions. Tears flowed as each shared moments of laughter, sorrow, and the unresolved pain of innocence lost. They spoke not only of their shared experiences that summer but reflected on life, love, and loss thereafter. As the last words left their lips, the air around them began to shift. The shadows swirled like a storm rising, and for a heartbeat, the figure began to solidify. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice a gentle gust of wind, "for remembering." They felt the warmth of light breaking through the fabric of shadow as the figure started to dissolve, glimmers of joy radiating from her fading form. With a final, grateful smile, she vanished, leaving behind nothing but shimmering motes dancing in the air. Chapter 7, Healing Light. The clearing fell silent, suffused with a newfound calmness. Sarah, Jake, Rachel, and Thomas felt like weight had been lifted from their hearts. Each friendly face was filled with relief and healing reverberation, like the end of a haunting melody. As they walked back, hand in hand, the shadows felt significantly less ominous. They even shared laughter, their bonds sealing the chasm of unease that had once stood between them. Gradually, they realized that the memories they had brought back possessed the power to reconnect them not only to each other but also to their childhoods. Back at Sarah's apartment, the group gathered in a circle once more. "Let's make a new memory," Rachel suggested, her artistic spirit glowing anew, "one that honors those children and holds no guilt." They spent the evening painting, laughing, and sharing the lives they had carved since childhood. As night fell, the photograph began to glow softly, capturing ephemeral wisps of light and laughter. Each brushstroke and shared story breathed life into a scar healed, a connection forged. Chapter 8, A New Beginning. Months passed, and Sarah found that she was no longer haunted by the photograph. What had once been a mystery filled with confusion had transformed into a catalyst for reconnecting with her past and each other. She often visited the woods but now felt a sense of peace rather than dread, leaving wildflowers at the site of their discovery. Little by little, she harnessed her childhood creativity and pursued writing. The story of that summer and the friends she had lost became a novel. The book was titled The Summer of Secrets, and it became a tribute to childhood's innocence and the fragility of memories. Each character reflected a part of her real friends, entwined within a fantastical narrative that interwove their childhood spirits and imprints of the past. On the day the book was published, Sarah stood in a local bookstore. As she gazed at the copies lined up on the shelf, she felt a wave of fulfillment wash over her. She had taken the mysterious photograph and turned it into something beautiful, something that would resonate with readers who had their own buried memories and shadows. Looking at the photograph hanging on her wall, she no longer felt a sense of fear. Instead, she cherished it as a symbol of growth, vulnerability, and the undeniable bond they all shared. With Jake, Rachel, and Thomas by her side, the shadows of their past may have lingered, but together they had rewritten the narrative, transforming it into one of light, connection, and hope. The photograph wasn't just a relic anymore, it was a reminder of their journey, and ultimately, a celebration of life and friendship that transcended the boundaries of time. Epilogue. Reflections. Years later, Sarah stood in front of a packed audience, her novel in hand. As she prepared to speak, she noticed a familiar face in the crowd, a girl with curly hair and freckles. Panic subsided into warmth as she smiled, remembering the essence of that photograph that had ignited her journey. In the tales we tell, we find pieces of ourselves we thought were lost, Sarah began, her voice steady. Stories connect us, heal us, and remind us that sometimes it takes embracing the past to truly live in the present. With that, she began her story, intertwining laughter, shadows, and redemption, bringing forth a legacy of resilience. The mysterious photograph had led each of them to a new beginning, and their tale would continue to be uncovered, held in the future as gently as it had been in their memories. The end.